Hi there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Deck Builder here at this week's episode of the Market Monday. So this week I'm going to keep it short and sweet. We're going to talk about the overall climate of the market, as well as the Challenger Decks 2020, and talk about Jumpstart, the new product that has been announced by Wizards of the Coast. Now, I'm late to the party for both of these products. However, I do think that they are worth talking about in this week's episode of the Market Monday. So let's go ahead and talk about the overall feel of the market. As you can see here with the daily changes and weekly changes, the Kroxa Titans of Death's Hunger had a very good showing in Jund over in the Star City Games Modern tournaments. And then we have Euro also doing very well in Pioneer, and Euro's able to stabilize that $40 price tag. So we were worried that something like Euro would be just a flavor of the week, would go up and then go back down in value. But I think that Euro really has positioned itself in the Pioneer and even in Modern as a key card that's going to be able to last eternally in its respected formats. And I don't see this card coming down anytime soon. Maybe it will take till rotation, or if it's announced as a reprint in something else. The other good thing about these weekly changes and daily changes is you can see that the Commander is in a pretty good shape. If you can have cards like Smothering Tithe and Divine Visitation and Guardian Project all even go up just slightly, and that's what I like more about Commander and EDH than other formats. They don't really have those price spikes like you'll see with like Kroxa Titan's Death here. It did well in a tournament, and it will spike up in value, and then the exact opposite will happen when it doesn't do well. It'll start going down and crash. The thing about EDH is the cards that have these small gains, they kind of sneak up out of nowhere, where Guardian Project was a 60-cent card at its low and is already up to $4.50. And even a card like Smothering Tithe that has been reprinted in the Brawl decks can continue to go up week after week, month after month. So that is a good indication for Commander, which we had a slumping even in Commander in the latter part of 2019. So it does seem that we are headed into, or I guess we're midway through, the tax season. Usually there's a good market during that time period. Magic the Gathering players seem to have their tax returns, have that expendable income, and actually spend it on Magic the Gathering cards. And we see this every year. It didn't start off as strong as especially 2019 or even 2018, but it is a good indication that the market is starting to absorb a lot of the singles that have been on the slump for the latter part of 2019. So Modern, Pioneer, all very strong right now. Standard's even strong, and Commander is really, really starting to show us signs that it's going to go back to a strong market. As you can see, the other big winners for the week are Shocklands, and that mainly has to do with the Challenger decks. So let's just go into Challenger decks here. So Challenger decks this year have been applauded. I think that well, first of all, Wizards of the Coast fixed the main issue that I had with Challenger decks. If you remember in the past few years, I hated them, and it had mainly to do because there wasn't a Pioneer format. It just went from Standard to Modern, and so it was issue number A. And then issue number B, they didn't even target any sort of equity that was non-rotating. So all the newer sets were just flat out ignored for the Challenger decks, and these had a very, very low shelf life of cards that were actually relevant. Well, now with Pioneer in the mix, and also with them actually targeting cards that are going to be safe rotation, I actually do like these Challenger decks, and I think they're going to sell a lot better. And that's actually worse for the singles that are included in these deck lists, because these are going to be print to demand. Every year Challenger decks are print to demand. They do more waves if there is the need for them. And so if these Challenger decks do fly off the shelf, then it might make these particular cards in the decks very, very tough to invest in long term. Now, the one complaint that I do have this year for Challenger decks is the utter lack of Shocklands. There was one Shockland, which was Steam Vents, which was the only inclusion for the Challenger deck. So it does seem to be that Wizards of the Coast is still being very, very greedy with their equity, and that's why they did not include Shocklands in these Challenger decks, which is funny because they did put them in Brawl. So that is why I think they're all starting to trickle up. Of course, Steam Vents is the one that will probably start trending down, but the rest of the Shocklands dodging the reprints in the Challenger decks, I think is a good sign for their future, especially since they are the new fetch lands for the Pioneer format, meaning they are the most liquid and the most sought after cards for an entire format. So let's just look at the Challenger decks, and I was able to predict one of these right. The other ones I was way off of. The Allied Fires is definitely the stinker out of the mix. It does have some good cards long term, like Narset Parter Veils, which is one of the most played cards in Commander currently, as well as it has plenty of play in Vintage, Legacy, Modern. Very, very powerful card. And we even have cards like Saheeli Sublime Artificer that sees play in Modern and in Pioneer. And then we have even cards like Ugin the Ineffable and Sark of the Masterless that I think will be, pretty decent cards long term. We have cards that are relevant right now in Standard, being the Deafening Clarion. This should definitely crash the price of the Deafening Clarion and the Time Wipe, as those cards are just going to be the brunt of the value lost when people are going to be opening these up for the Steam vents. Another card too that's really, really going to get hurt is Kenrith the Returned, because this actually already has more supply than your average mythic. When the numbers were crunched in any given set, especially with this being able to be included in the collector's edition, there were more of Kenriths of the buy a box promo and the Throne of Eldraine supply as a whole than there was of the other mythics. Is actually quite substantial. But Fae of Wishes is another card that I think that will be looked at long term as a very, very good card. It does see play in many, many different formats, and it's overall, like, even though this is the worst out of the bunch, this is a good sign that this is the worst out of the bunch, because it does have some very relevant rares, uncommons, and actually does have the Shockland. So if they're going to put a Shockland in any deck, this was the best place to put it, as I think that Steam vents are going to be enough reasons for people to open these up to begin with. If we go down to the next one with Final Adventure, this one has a lot of good things going for it with Lovestruck Beast and Murderous Rider. I am still surprised that Lovestruck Beast has been able to be under that $2 price tag, as this card sees in just a huge amount of play in Pioneer, and it also sees a lot of play in Standard, and it's one of those cards that, depending on the meta, can be one of the best cards in the meta. And it also has a Knight of the Ebon Legion, which is going to be a Pioneer staple, one of the best one-drops for Black ever printed, and a few of these other cards of the uncommons and whatnot, I think are pretty good additions and will add to the value of this Final Adventure long term. What this one doesn't have going for it is a Shockland, but it does have Fabled Passage and Castle Locktwain. Both of these are going to be highly sought after cards for Pioneer for years to come, and the Castle Locktwain has been trickling up week after week, month after month. It was one of those cards that I was kicking myself not to go in on. I was waiting for them to just go down slightly more to pull the trigger on the Castle Locktwain. But however, this one is a card that I would invest in if the price does crash from this printing of Final Adventure. And same thing with Fabled Passage. I do think the Fabled Passage is going to get crushed, and that might be a good card to reinvest in when it does, because all the other challenger decks are including a Fabled Passage. Funny how they included this particular card, but they didn't include the Shocklands. All right, so we go over to Cavalcade Charge. This is probably the one that's going to be most relevant long term as far as both Pioneer play out of the box, as well as going to be able to survive most of rotation, with still having the Torbrand, the Thane of Redfell, which I don't think they're going to be able to print like another 4-drop that really can compete with this particular card in Standard. It does have the Runaway Steamkins. That's the second printing in Challenger decks for Runaway Steamkins. And it does have the Bone Crusher Giant, which is another card that just sees a phenomenal amount of play in the Pioneer format. We also have a 4 of the Light Up the Stage, which, even though this had an F&M promo, continue to go up in value because this card does see tons of play in every format that it's legal in. And it does even have Fervent Champions, which is a pretty decent one-drop for the post-rotation. Embercleave is another card that's been tricking up in value, making this a steal of a deal right now. When they printed this deck, the Embercleave wasn't a money card. It was hovering around the $8 to $10 range. And now, though, it has seen so much play in Standard due to the popularity of Mono Red. It's the second most played deck in the format next to UI Control. The Embercleave has just spiked up in value. So I think this one does have a lot of value hidden in it with the Embercleaves, with the Torbrands, with the Bone Crusher Giants, which all survive rotation. And the non-rotating card are pretty decent too, with the Runaway Steamkins and the Light Up the Stage, and even Chandra Acolyte of Flame is a pretty decent card. It has seen play from time to time in like Modern, and I'm sure it can see play is powerful enough in Pioneer. Still even does have casual favorites like the Cavalcade of Calamity that you can make just a quick, fast deck to overwhelm your opponent. Experimental Frenzy also gets another reprinting, and this should definitely keep the price down on both Runaway of Steamkin and Experimental Frenzy for years and years to come. So those are the two that I would avoid. The one that I did get right was the Flash deck, the blue-green Flash, and it was correct too that they put a Brazen Borrower in it. That is really all this deck needs to sell, because Brazen Borrower is another card that sees so much play in Modern, Pioneer, and even Standard. And this one also does have the Castle Vantress as well as the Fabled Passage, two lands that see a ton of play in many different formats as well. The Castle Vantress sees play all the way back into Legacy, I believe. There also was some decent inclusions for non-rotating equity in the form of Thassa's Intervention that continue to see more and more play in Standard. Has an IPIC Ambusher for something that is rotating but should be a very popular card in Wolf Tribal and years to come in any sort of Flash deck. I think this is powerful enough for the Pioneer format. It has seen some play in the Pioneer format, and we do have more cards that do survive rotation, like a 4 of Wildborn Preserver, that should be good enough post-rotation for other Flash-type archetypes. Into the sideboard, it has 2 Mystical Disputes, which is actually pretty decent. This card has been going up in value. It sees so much play in Modern and Pioneer. And overall, I think that all of these Challenger decks are going to be pretty good investments if you can get in on them at a decent price point. My current cost of them, if you are a patron, is $142, and I'm not expecting them to be that tough to come by. I did order 3 cases of these, I believe. That was all the demand that I had for them, but I do believe that these will be print to demand like the Challenger decks in the last few years. And what that means is they'll do wave by wave. They're going to try to gauge how much of supply they need of these, and then if there is more demand for them, they will print more of these particular Challenger decks to meet that demand. So let's go ahead and talk about one other thing. Let's talk about Unsanctioned real quick. Unsanctioned, I have confirmed from my source at Wizards of the Coast that it is going to be print to demand. Unsanctioned is another unset. It really just has those lands in it that are going to hold the price tag for it. My current cost is about $32, I believe, from distributors, and I think it's supposed to be retailing for $60. And it has been confirmed it's going to be print to demand. That is something that I would not touch with a 10-foot pole. I think eventually those lands are they're definitely only going to be worth around that $30 to $35 total. The rest of the cards in the set are not going to be worth anything. Not any of the reprints from the old Unglued and those sort of sets, any of the fun cards, they're not going to have any value. The only thing that's going to have value is the lands, and I do believe it's going to go below the actual total market price is going to go below the distributor cost of those particular cards. So if you're looking for Unsanctioned for the lands, I say wait a bit and buy the lands themselves. They'll be cheaper than the Unsanctioned. If I'm wrong, however, this is confirmed to be printed to demand. You could make a pretty penny if it's, say, the lands are selling for like $50, $60, and you can get 50 copies of these and just flip them. That might make a pretty reasonable little revenue stream until the demand actually runs out of these and they quit printing them. But again, I think that what the problem is with what we've had with lands in the past few years is they're starting to lose their specialness. There's going to be lands even announced now that are going to be specialty lands that are coming out in future products. And I mean, how many full art lands? How many different ways can they up their game to try to make people want to play basic lands? I don't know. That's my opinion. If you go back to like Amonkhet lands and Battle for Zendikar lands, those have crashed. Those things aren't even worth anything at the moment. I know these are a little more flashy. I don't have a picture right now for them, but I think everyone's seen the unstable lands. All right, last but not least, let's go ahead and talk about the Jumpstart. So Jumpstart is an interesting one. What the only problem I have with Jumpstart is, wow, oh wow, are we kind of entering into the reprint hell? So layers are confirmed to be coming out every month. So every month they're going to continue to choose a theme for layers. I actually may or may not have the source for the upcoming layer that is going to be coming out in March, which I think is hilarious. You'll understand why I'm saying this when you see the title of the layer. But that's all I'm going to say about it because I don't want to get people in trouble. But anyhow, it's been confirmed that they're going to be trying to pick themes that match like a Magic the Gathering theme and something that's going on. Like the Year of the Rat was one. We're expecting something like Earth Day, or maybe there'll be something else coming up that will have some sort of holiday that they can make a theme around. And Yeah, they're going to continue to do layers. Layers have been confirmed also to have around 40 to 50,000 of them sold. Those are also the way they do layers is kind of how board games do Kickstarter. So people commit to buy them, and then I believe they print those. And people have also confirmed if you buy like one-ofs of those layers, you're more likely to get them early. And the people that buy like 4, 5, 6, 7 plus copies are the ones that then are going to be pushed back until they do their full printing to meet exactly how many of those layers were committed to. So they have a time period of when you can actually order those layers, and then they print those layers to then meet the demand, which is a weird way of doing things. But they seem to be capping out around the 40 to 50,000. I think that some of them, the first layers were selling all the way up to 60, 70,000. So we're already seeing that layers are starting to temper off. And people they're just losing their specialness. It's like anything else in Magic the Gathering. When they printed Expeditions, they were, really, really sought after. Then they went over to Masterpieces, which were still very sought after. But the time they got to Invocations, people have kind of given up and like, oh, this has lost its specialness. And Amonkhet and Hour of Devastation didn't have that sort of energy to buy those booster packs to search for Invocations like the sets before them did. So anyway, let's get back to Jumpstart. Jumpstart is just entering into the fray when there is a ton of reprinted sets. Like I've already mentioned, Unsanctioned and Challenger decks. There's also there most likely will be another supplemental product coming out later on. There has been some murmurings about a Pioneer supplemental product, and so wow is all I can say with the amount of reprinted cards. And that's another reason why I think that you should be getting out of card singles and then buying back in after they get reprinted. So I think the safest way to invest in Magic the Gathering now is once they've received a reprint, that's when you get in on them. And then you have like a time period of where if they double up in value, you have to pick a number. If they ever increase above that threshold, you sell, and don't get caught really holding on to Magic the Gathering singles, because it really seems to be that Wizards is going all out on printing and printing and printing. Ikoria has 5 Commander decks that are coming out, not 4, 5 of them. I believe the price tag on those is going to be distributor cost of like $120 to $125 when I was looking at it. I'm sure they're going to have like game nights again for this year. I'm sure they're going to have many other products that come out, and Jumpstart is going to be a huge printing. So this has 500 different cards, and only 37 of them are going to be new to the game. They say they're going to closely tie it to core 2021 themes, so they're going to share a lot of the content. So I don't know if they're saying that that's going to be part of the new cards or the reprint. I'm sure they're going to consider them reprint. I am not 100% sure with that. That is the kind of weird wording. And then the card legality of the new cards, of course, will only be legal in Legacy, Vintage, and Commander. So some packs will actually even have an extra mythic rare, and themes have only one possible card list. So they only have cards from that specific theme can only be found in that theme. So anyway, Jumpstart, I don't know if I explained this before. Now, since I had to do a retake on this video, it seems to me that some Wizard of the Coast employee was playing the popular game Smash Up, which is where it's a board game, it's a card game basically, where it has themes, and you take 2 random tribes, you shuffle them together, you smash them up basically, and you play against your opponent who's doing the same thing. And so Jumpstart is going to be just that. Each one of these 20 card booster packs is going to have a theme. It's going to have a randomized content of those themes. You're going to take 2 booster packs, shuffle them up, and play against your opponent. It's very, very much geared towards the casual crowd. I actually do like this a lot. I think it's going to be a fun experience for pre-release, and I think it's going to be a pretty good seller as far as stores to get the casual players just to, buy a couple packs here. And it has a lot of like replay ability by buying these packs. First of all, they're going to be different themes every time. I mean, you could get the same theme twice in a row. But not only that, but those themes are randomized, so you might actually get different cards in those themes. So the $1 million question is going to be to try to figure out what themes they're going to be. They've already announced unicorns, pirates, cats, I believe, were in there. You see on the pack art, it has dogs, and it also has goblins. So dogs is a tricky one, because I don't think there's that many hounds in the history of Magic the Gathering, and the color scheme is probably going to be in red, if I remember correctly. Red, white, probably. That seems to be a lot of hounds in both of those colors. Of course, goblins would most likely be red. And I'm also thinking they're going to have some sort of mana base to support these themes. So many of these themes that are too color will most likely need to have fixing in them. We'll have to get more information as time goes on of how these will work, but this is definitely an interesting product, mainly due to this has 500 whopping cards in them. And I kind of prefer this over like printing a master set where particular cards get crushed, they get included in that. So these sort of sets have a high, like mystery booster packs and Jumpstart that have a high amount of cards in them. I think are going to affect the singles market a lot less than, say, if this was a 250 card set. Because of course you'd have to reprint double of those to affect what it'd be from a 500 card set. So I'm thinking that mystery booster packs and Jumpstart aren't going to affect a particular individual card as much as say something being printed out of like an iconic Masters. So anyway, there you have it with this week's episode of the Market Monday. Again, it's kind of short and sweet this time with the products that are coming out. I'll keep my eyes peeled for more information about Jumpstart. If you can get ahead on the cards being reprinted in this set, of course you can save money by not having your value crushed. And again, this is what this channel is really geared towards, is managing your collection. Yes, we've made some great specs. Yes, we've made money in the past on buying singles and selling them, but it's just about as much as avoiding losses as it is potentially gaining gains. So we'll keep our eye out on Jumpstart. So there you have it. I'll keep you updated as well on the Rogue Market channel. I've got a goodie coming out about cards that I am investing in from Theros Beyond Death. Theros Beyond Death is definitely a controversial topic, but I think there are some sleepers in that set that are just going to sneak up on us, especially for EDH. And if you actually go back to what I was talking about, like Guardian Project, we seem to have one of these every set that just starts off as a bulk rare, and pretty soon, out of nowhere, it is $3, $4, $5. And so those are, EDH is still my favorite formats for those slow increases, and you just have to get out of them before they get a reprint, which they inevitably do in a Commander set coming up. But anyway, that's a topic for another day, and go ahead and check out that Rogue Market channel if you haven't already subscribed, and we'll be getting to that topic. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.